For my next unwritten chapter, which comes after all of this success and heartache, I would like this part of the story to finally have a happy ending.
You already know the other story, the one about Monster Mary that I spoke of in past episodes. But there were some pieces to the story that were left out. It might have had something to do with time constraints, but we will give it another go. I was a scholar for many years on all things related to the myth of the alternate history of the author known as Mary Shelley and her husband, Percy. The reason for this history having been buried for so long was that there was a general consensus among many literary scholars, particularly of her work and legacy, that some of the details of her journey were just too outlandish to accept in most intellectual circles. Thus, the whole reason for having erected a statue and having it placed near Lake Geneva in order that someone might stumble across it one day, and then maybe the true history of this woman and her story may come to light. That never happened, of course. So, that's what I've been doing these past decades. Gathering and collecting the scattered facts of her complex and compelling life. We already know how Mary's story ends, but the one that has been kept from the general public all these years is not so easy to digest. In the last episode, The Dream Diaries of Monster Mary, when she was transported into the present day in order to witness her creation, the novel she named Frankenstein, being turned into a cinematic farce called Young Frankenstein, the portrayal of her characters were placed almost as if they had come from an alternate universe. The now time traveler known as Mary Shelley had plans of her own. She didn't exactly return to her own present day, as was described originally in that last episode. Instead, she opened yet another door after the movie of her creation finished its screening in front of her. A door which led to another theater entrance and a dark hallway. To a comfortable seat in the front row in order to witness the endless movie.
Hello, Nan. This is John. John Destin, Percy psychiatrist. Are you sure he's not in his office? Well, that's pretty damn peculiar because he never misses his regular scheduled appointments with me. Where did you say he was? A movie theater? He must have forgotten we had our 2 o'clock appointment. Let him know I called. Hey, and Nan, you be a good literary agent and try and keep his appointment straight from now on. Okay? I wonder if he didn't remember or just didn't want to show up to his regular weekly appointment. You know, that last session with him was rather, well, hell. It was a bizarre one. All that stuff about time travel and meeting his now dead wife in some other alternate version of a past life. Then, there's all this talk about an excursion through the Sahara Desert that he keeps seeing in his dreams, and witnessing his deceased wife go from one ragged outlier town to the next. Some of the encounters I've had with him lately have been as if he's reciting one of his poems or essays, as if most of his best-selling novels and poetry aren't already disjointed enough. Personally, I've never really saw the appeal in a Percy Stevens novel, especially his very latest, which turns out is another critically acclaimed book of poetry. He really should be taking his meds on a regular basis. I think I may even up his dosage if I see him anymore. And this pattern of behavior arises. When he comes in for his next visit, I might do that. Hopefully, if he hasn't completely fallen off the wagon by then. That drinking and coke binge he went on over a year ago makes me wonder if, whether he's somewhere right now getting smashed. I'd better go and find him. Nan did say that he was at a movie theater on Highland Avenue. I guess he was trying to catch a matinee or something and forgot about our appointment. I don't know. Who knows? Sometimes I wonder why I care so much. Yet, he is still a personal friend of mine. Though that and in of itself does present a huge conflict of interest. But I told myself, John, you already knew that before taking him in as a client. I just felt so bad for him at the time when he should be reaping the benefits of his success. Something in me just has to know he's keeping himself straight, Hey, taxi! Taxi! Slow down!
I know. I know what you're going to say. So just don't say it, alright? I've had enough with all the drama for one day. The movie I just watched was enough to make me want to check back into rehab. But here we are, Doc. We are always right here. Back where we started from.
No, Percy. Back to where you started from. After all, it's your recovery I'm concerned about, remember? Why the hell didn't you show up earlier this afternoon? What was your reasoning this time? You're lucky to have a friend like me who happens to be a shrink. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be bothered to come down to this place. What the hell are you doing to yourself? What's really going on, Percy?
I saw her again, John. I saw my wife. This time it was a character in this movie I just came out of. It was like she kept appearing in front of me and place of the actress who was portraying the role of a young maiden. You see, she had run away to be with a prince who was much older than her.
You mean that fantasy movie that just came out? What is it called? The Curse of...
The Curse of Wollenstone.
Okay. So what is it that you saw exactly? Or let me rephrase that question. What was it in the movie that reminded you of her? Of your wife?
Remember, John, about a month ago when I was sitting in your office and explaining to you about Mary? About what happened to her before she died?
So tell me everything from the beginning about the visitations from your wife. How does she come to you, in your dreams? Or do you physically see her? How does this relate to your current emotional state?
John, it's like I've told you before. More recently, she's been showing up in my dreams. Then, during the movie today, the Curse of Wollenstone, she was there in every scene. The young maiden, who later becomes a princess in the story. She has to overcome huge obstacles, just as my wife did in her short time while she was here. You just can't get over the accident, I guess is what it is, John. She was on a promotional tour of her new book. Just her and a couple of friends from back in her high school days. They were out on our personal sailboat. She was taking a little R&R out there in Marina del Rey, out near LA. I just couldn't be there with her that weekend because I was on my own promotional tour here in the city. The whole touring circuit. Regis and Kathy Lee, the Today Show. But something in the back of my mind told me that something bad was going to happen. Those countless times when we were out on the Don Juan, she seemed like she could handle it on her own, They must have hit some really bad weather. But there wasn't much left in the wreckage. I can hear her heartbeat at night as I'm drifting off to sleep. As if her beats are a way of lulling me into a dream state. Once I'm in it, I can see her in some dark hallway. But it's no ordinary hallway. It's a large Victorian-style mansion. Like something out of a Jane Austen novel. I could see her walking barefoot, holding a candle, into a large room near the back of the mansion, in what looked to be a sitting room or lounge area, something like that. This dream was so vivid. I could see her nightgown. That she was wearing a large nightgown, something that looked like it was from the 1800s, with ruffles at the neck and wrists. It was so strange to not see her clad in her usual pair of Victoria's Secret lace panties or one of my t-shirts over her entire thin frame. It was as if we could both hear the same thing in this dream. A static, electrical pulse that seemed to trigger both of our inner senses. It was as if an electrical current was an internal life force by its own design. I don't know if that makes sense. a large balloon-looking blob of a woman appears above the large room, hovering as we both enter, me softly behind without her even noticing me. And my wife Mary looks up at her, and her expression is that of someone who has just seen something vaguely familiar, but yet as foreign and distant, like some stranger making their way into the house, and now seen floating from above. The huge balloon of a woman spoke to Mary, uttering a few inaudible words. The only word I could make out was paradox.
What do you think that means? Paradox.
I'm not altogether sure. Only that this apparition floating above also became like a second visitor in my dreams afterward. She'd come and go just as Mary would. Sometimes she would appear as a reflection in a mirror when I'd walk naked across the room to the bathroom. I know. But her body was there in place of my own as I walked past, continuing to stare at her, in awe of what that image conjured within my mind. To this day, I'm not sure what it all meant. I'm not sure what it means now. But in the movie theater today, the word paradox showed up in several key scenes, especially after the maiden wins the hand of the valiant prince. It felt like a scene from my own past, yet it never really happened at all. The names of people I'd come to know had been changed around, but the places felt just as real as every waking moment experienced up to this point, where I'm laying on a couch, talking to you, Doc. Oh, shit. I'm gonna be late for my book signing. Gotta go, Doc. I think we went past our time anyhow. See you next week.
How's about a British jig and reel? Speaking King's English in quotation, as railhead towns feel the steel mills rust, water froze in the generation. Clear as winter ice, this is your paradise. There ain't no need for ya. There ain't no need for ya. Go straight to hell, boys. Go straight to hell, boys.
I guess the poem has a multitude of meanings if you look at it from several different angles. In one breath, I'd say it's about spreading the word of change, but clearly through the eyes of a poet. You know what you said at that book signing was a load of shit. Of course, on the surface, you know what you want to convey. But it's not so easy to really speak those unheard truths. Especially the ones that find you crying in the dark, clad with nothing but a pair of boxer shorts on, the television turned off, laying there in silence. Just a man awake for endless nights in an empty bed. All of those thoughts go trembling through your veins, knowing damn well she should be right beside you. The only thing I have left now is that necklace of hers that she used to wear constantly. The one with the charm she got one summer while we were vacationing out in Martha's Vineyard. It now sits there on my nightstand. The one with a half a heart, where the other half is, I guess it went with her when she drowned with the rest of her friends in that accident many months back. It's too surreal to even still be thinking about it. No amount of booze, jazz records, or cocaine will ever be enough to cure the pain of her loss, except for the dreams and visitations I keep having. The ones especially where I see her all bundled up in safari clothing, her face covered, traveling in a small caravan out in the desert. Although it's the same person, my Mary, she appears to be someone else. She's not that free spirit that I grew to love when we were at NYU. No, this version of Mary seems determined by some predestined fate to search for someone or something she found her purpose for. A purpose other than to be the wife of a famous, best-selling author. I can see that at certain points in her journey she appears to be ill-stricken, stopping every so often in an outlier village or town, staying in some seedy hotel room where running water is scarce, lying in her own profuse sweat and weeks' worth of body odor. She has a will about her, a drive like nothing I've ever witnessed from the Mary I came to know. I think it's just my subconscious mind getting the better part of me. I should get some sleep. I have more promotion to do for the new book tomorrow. That late night show promotional circuit is always such a big damn headache. It's so clear to me now, clear as day, and the west winds that blow the desert sand somewhere far from the furthest outpost. Mary must be on her way there, to an old Victorian mansion lying in a desert oasis with date palms and beautifully kept grounds just out of reach of the blistering world that lies beyond it. Endless miles of sand. Perhaps it's her from another time, or maybe just a trace of herself that's been left over, leaving me some scattered breadcrumbs here and there. She's even left a few for me to follow her through the ripples in the sand. The desert, with its intense and unforgiving landscape. Seeing her mother in the very same mirror in place of myself, and the dark mansion where Mary crept slowly towards the sphere of vapors that was her mother, hovering there above, as she smiled like some figure in one of those oil paintings you'd see in some museum. One alive, the other dead. This could be what she meant by the word paradox. As if this were the beginning of the end. But something tells me, deep down inside as I stare through the other side of my bedroom mirror, that maybe the beginning has no end. Or at least in how we understand things to be.
The letter came in a tattered envelope simply addressed to Mary with no return address. It had been carefully handwritten and sealed up, as if it had traveled far and wide through the open desert, all the way to where I had spent the better part of the last several years, living as a writer in Tangier. I had found my creative muse there within the confines of the Hotel Villa de France, where I had kept a room. Gertrude Stein and Matisse had once stayed in that very same hotel. So being there for me had carried with it a certain peculiar sense of personal pride, as if it were some kind of elite and sacred sanctuary for writers and artists. I'd come here after some deeply personal setbacks and had felt a strong desire to start over again, to regain a part of me that was somehow lost, yet not completely buried. The whole of my subconscious could vaguely remember what I had been determined to do before the death of my husband and several of my children, in a horrific car accident a few years prior to me coming here on my own. With my unfinished manuscript in hand, a ton of scattered notes and journal entries which were kept in a dream diary that I'd had since my early teens, and only a bag of luggage, I left my old life behind me forever. Or so at least I thought, until the day that this desert-worn letter arrived and slipped under my door by some stranger. To Mary. There was such an intense amount of anxiety in that moment leading up to finding out who had sent the letter, and what it all may have meant. That morning, as I sat in the hotel cafe, under the jasmine tree amongst the flower beds, drinking my cup of coffee and enjoying my toast wrapped in linen, I finally opened the letter and began reading it. The man who had written it had identified himself as Gilbert Imlay, who had once known my mother, also named Mary. I never knew my mother in real life, only in some photos my father, William, had kept of her and some pictures hidden away in various photo albums. My father may have mentioned his name once or twice, but it seemed as foreign as she had always felt to me. My mother had died while giving birth to me, and my father, for all of his remaining years afterward, ever hardly mentioned her at all. There were only scattered breadcrumbs, traces of her life here and there. Nothing really concrete. Until the day the letter arrived, my mother Mary remained as a phantom from some other past. As I read his letter, it occurred to me that Gilbert had once been one of my mother's many love interests, even before father came into the picture, at least according to Gilbert. He wanted me to come out to a place in the desert where he had been living his remaining days, because there was something he desperately wanted to give me before his departure from the world. Gilbert was on his deathbed, as he stated in the letter, and wanted very much to leave with the sense of knowing his life's mission had been fulfilled. I was nervous. not to mention hot from the disappearing shade of the morning in that very moment. For it was quite clear that my destiny up until that point had been to stay in Tangier and finish the rest of my novel. But something within the letter sent by this strange man had led me to believe otherwise. I knew that the coming days ahead would be quite treacherous, as each day there appeared before my eyes a vast ocean of sand. Traveling with the ragtag bunch of companions I'd met after setting out to find the mansion he named in his letter. An oasis called the Villa Diodati. Hello, can I help you?
Hello, madame. My name is Fleur. You received a letter as of yesterday, yes? I take it you've had a chance to read it.
Why, yes, I have. Were you the one?
Yes, madame. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Mr. Gilbert Imlay's personal assistant. I've come all the way here to Tangier to give you his letter and to escort you to him. He lives in a very remote part of the desert, in Algeria to be precise.
How did you know where to find me? What is this all about anyway? I don't even know this man, Gilbert Imlay. I've only heard his name maybe once, in passing, at a party my father hosted years ago for some of his socialite friends, and...
Well, yes, madame, I'm sure you are aware that your deceased mother and Mr. Imlay were once somewhat close, and Mr. Imlay wants you to come and see him on his deathbed, as it is one of his very last wishes. He has followed you throughout your life, though, albeit from afar. Still, he wants so very much to see you in person.
Let me go and think it over.
I've arranged to have a caravan awaiting for us once we arrive in the port of Algiers. Please do take your time, madame, but don't take too long to decide. With each day that passes, Gilbert grows more weakened with sickness. I shall meet you tomorrow down at the Hotel Café for a final decision. Till then, it was nice meeting you, madame.
Nice meeting you too, Fleur.
Down in Kenya where the Maasai roam and the grass grows tall on the veld. In our old colonial home, we drank our bitters while the empire fell. Leave my monkey alone. Leave my monkey alone. Leave my monkey alone. Leave my monkey alone. One day the Mau Mau came. All we had was lost. In our old colonial home, under the Southern Cross. Leave my monkey alone. Leave my monkey alone. Leave my monkey alone. Leave my monkey alone.
The sky in the desert here at night is like a scene from one of any number of unconscious states. The one where I'm fully aware of being in a dream, but still feeling as if it were a part of my waking moment. In times like these, with the stillness of the desert, I could almost feel myself being lifted and carried along in my own magic carpet. With a front row seat overlooking the endless rows of stars overhead. If I wanted to, I could reach out with both hands and grab a hold of many of them all at once and sense what they might actually feel like. Are they electrical? Only in a dream would I conjure such an image, but those are the images that up until now have kept me sane on this long and strange journey. Myself, along with my newly acquired travel partner, Fleur, had met up with a caravan he had acquired a few weeks ago after arriving in the port of Algiers. Several others on camels, who knew the precise location of Gilbert Imlay's mansion, along with an old makeshift desert bus, made up our caravan. After we started the long stretch of our journey across the Sahara, we would be stopping at various outposts along the way, like Azure Point, where we would end up staying for several days due to an intense sandstorm coming from the east. Azure Point was one of the furthest places out here and couldn't be easily found on any map. Once we got there, it was apparent that most of the inhabitants hadn't seen anyone come their way in some time. I wondered whether Fleur had the same caravan as he traveled all the way to find me in Tangier. He seemed to be a very peculiar man, small, with the look of an old British colonial soldier from ages past.
Wait until the war is over and we're both a little older. The unknown soldier.
He kept to himself as we headed toward Azure Point, with his nose firmly planted in some sort of journal he seemed to be keeping, but began to speak not long before we arrived.
Madame, not too long now, and we will be heading into Azure Point for a few days of rest for the crew. You'll find the accommodations are somewhat lacking out here in these outlier towns, but it shall do until the sandstorm passes through. We shall be safe until the next leg of our journey.
Did you travel with these same men on your way to see me in Tangier? Or was it...
Madame, I always travel with assistants whenever I must leave Mr. Imlay for any business matter. In this case, we hadn't much time to get to you, due to Mr. Imlay's current condition. So, you'll have to excuse them if they seem a bit tired and ragged. It's been a long journey, but it will prove to be a worthwhile endeavor.
I wonder what Fleur meant by worthwhile endeavor. All of this seems so very strange to me. One minute, I was an expat writer working on my great American novel, and then, next thing I know, I'm having my ass carted through the desert with this guy who looks like he's out of a scene from some historical fiction set around the Boer War. I did find the proposition rather fascinating, though. So with the bit of wanderlust I've always seemed to possess, I couldn't refuse the offer. It seemed inevitable in a way, as if I'd been on this kind of journey before, but maybe in a slightly different manner. More of that thing that people sometimes call déjà vu, I suppose. With several days now into our stay at Azure Point, I couldn't help but notice the town seemed to be surrounded with buildings that had parapets all uniformly lined up and painted in white, giving the place a kind of closed-in atmosphere. It's as if the town were trying to keep its inhabitants in, for the buildings seemed to be meticulously situated very closely together, like a bedlam or a prison, with a main opening in the center that held several old monuments, looking as if they hadn't been tended to in many years. It was still a reminder of being in the desert, and that added a mysterious, often quiet intensity to the people who lived here. I had this trepidation about the journey which still lay ahead, something in my gut telling me that something was off about my travel partner, Fleur. He seemed to be constantly studying me, then taking some sort of notes in his journal, as if I was some kind of experiment he was working on. I'm not sure why I had agreed to this trip, other than the fact that it seemed like the perfect mental escape from the novel I was writing while I was in Tangier. I was wrestling with the idea of mankind playing God in my story, and the result of that being in the form of a fable or myth. Much like Zeus when he punished Prometheus by chaining him to a rock for stealing fire from the sun. His actions by giving it to humans in order that they would advance was just one of many inspirations for creating a protagonist character named Victor Frankenstein. Instead of fire, my character Victor would hone electrical current in order to create life from non-life. Like the unrelenting sun out here in the desert, I had the idea of this story swirling around my head, off and on for many years. It would be my greatest achievement if I ever could focus on it. But for now, the focus was on the final leg of our journey. The one which would lead us to Gilbert Imlay's mansion. A desert oasis that I was told by Fleur existed beyond the furthest outpost.
Well, 729, scene 823A, take 5.
What the hell are you doing to me? What was in that drink you gave me? And where is Gilbert Imlay? I've asked you several times now.
As you probably surmised, Gilbert is dead, madame. Myself and some of his most loyal subjects are all who remain. One of his very last wishes was to summon you here. Since his death a number of months ago, we have kept up his studies on the afterlife in the hopes of finishing a grand experiment he was working on. A machine that can reanimate human beings he liked to call the paradox machine.
What does this have to do with me? Why bring me all the way out here to witness his experiment?
Why? Madame, it's simple. You are the experiment.
The what? What are you saying, man?
Mr. Imlay wanted so much to have his true love, your mother, Mary Wollstonecraft, reanimated so he could be with her once again, as he had been many years ago. Since Mr. Imlay's retreat from public life decades earlier, he spent most of his remaining moments refining these experiments. His ultimate purpose of building the paradox machine was to bring one back from the state of non-living. In order to accomplish this, he had to have the perfect host for the brain of your mother, which is a perfectly preserved specimen in a glass jar that he's kept here all these years. Some attempts at resurrecting your mother were tried on other hosts, but failed, as Mr. Imlay finally realized that in order for the experiment to work, that his one true love, Mary, would remember not only who she was, but could easily pick her past right back off where she had left it, as she lay dying while giving birth to you, was to have the actual DNA of one of her own family members. Who better than the very person who had been responsible for her death in the first place? Now, madame, you shall be taken into the laboratory room down in the vast catacombs that Mr. Imlay built many years ago. We shall follow his instructions to a T in order to fulfill his last wishes. As a humble servant of his for many years, I consider it my sacred duty to honor him. I hope you'll understand. It's really for the best.
But will I die? Won't I be sacrificed in order that she may live? Jesus Christus Domine.
Just a few more seconds now. Any moment, her lifeless body should reanimate with her new brain. The one of her deceased mother. Oh, I see those eyes opening. Okay. Hello? Why? Welcome home. Finally, madame. We've been waiting for you. Shit. Oh, God, what was that? Oh, God, must have been a dream. Oh, damn. I missed another appointment. I better call John. Hey, John. I know, John. I'm sorry. Well, what can I say? It's been hard without her. Without Mary. I'm afraid Oh, my God. John. She's here, John. Mary. Looking at me from across the room in my mirror. It used to be her mother's reflection staring back. The one in all those old pictures Mary kept. And now... it's Mary. She's alive, John.
Riders on the storm, riders on the storm. Into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown. Like a dog without a bone, an actor out alone. Riders on the storm, there's a killer on the road. His brain is squirming like a toad. Take a long holiday, let your children play. If you give this man a ride, life will never end. Gotta love your man. Yeah. Riders on the storm, riders on the storm. Into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown. Like a dog without a bone, an actor out on loan. Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm, riders on the storm, riders on the storm, riders on the storm.